Welcome everyone to your news and stimulus update for today, Thursday, April 1st. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Biden's new economic recovery plan. He just revealed the first part of it, which is a $2.2 trillion, mainly infrastructure, but we're going to break it down, show you exactly what's in it. There's been a lot of calls for stimulus to be included in this one as well. We'll let you know if it's in there. Also, the IRS just broke some more important news, especially for those of you that already filed taxes. We're going to share with you exactly what they just said, and we're going to finish up this episode with revealing to you all the information we know about the stimulus payments that are going to be hitting more people's bank accounts in the upcoming weeks. We'll tell you the exact dates, and we'll just verify the dates that we've shared with you already. So let's start out with this new economic recovery plan. It's called the American Jobs Plan. Biden just revealed the first part of it yesterday. He's planning on paying for it by increasing the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%. There is a second part of this plan that Biden said he's going to reveal in the upcoming weeks. So let's go ahead and take a look at what is in this new infrastructure plan. So after researching a number of sources to find out exactly what's in this plan, I realized that USA Today did a phenomenal job in breaking this thing down. So I'm going to bring you right through their graphic organizers, share with you exactly what's in this plan, see if there's some stimulus in there, and then I'll share with you my thoughts. Let me go ahead and get rid of myself. Okay, there we go. You can see the first part of this plan is transportation and infrastructure coming in at $621 billion. So here's the breakdown. $174 billion of it for electrical vehicles, including a network of 500,000 EV stations. I actually like the idea of putting in more EV stations because if there's not, electric vehicles are really going to have a tough time getting off the ground. We have $80 billion for Amtrak's repair backlog, improvements, existing routes, and expansion. We have $115 billion to modernize bridges, highways, roads, and main streets that are in the most critical need of repair. This is the part of the bill that most people are not going to have a problem with. Pretty much everyone's going to agree that we need to modernize these parts of the infrastructure. We have infrastructure resilience, $50 billion to withstand climate-related disasters. Of course, they're going to have to be a little bit more specific on what that means. $50 billion to that. Miscellaneous projects, $25 billion, again, more specific. $25 billion to upgrade airports. Not sure if that's exactly enough money to upgrade United States airports. If you've been to the airport anytime within the last few years, you know that many of them need to be upgraded. Improve road safety, $20 billion. Modernize public transit, doubling federal funding for public transit, $85 billion. Of course, if you use public transit anytime recently, you do know that they need to be modernized and updated. Connect neighborhoods historically cut off by investments at $20 billion. And inland waterways and coastal ports, land ports of entry and ferries, $17 billion there. So that first part of the bill, which was $621 billion, about 1/4 of the total cost, was the main physical infrastructure part of the bill. Although there was some electric energy vehicle portions in it, I think most people are going to agree with many of those provisions, and most of that's not going to have a problem getting through. I agree with much of it, of course, as well. There has to be more specifics on exactly how the money is going to be spent and the oversight of that money being spent in that portion, but overall, I think we're starting out well. Let's get into the second part of the money being spent in this new American Jobs Plan. As you can see here, USA Today is slating the second part as a quality of life at home, $650 billion. That sounds like we might have a little bit more problems with people being okay, including that into an infrastructure plan, but let's see what's in this quality of life at home. Retrofit more than 2 million homes and commercial properties, $213 billion. This retrofitting would be upgrading the pipes that are in there, drinking water, and probably a number of other things that are going to be included in this. It could even be windows, AC systems, HVAC stuff, and $213 billion commercial included. What's the split going to be on that? Which homes are going to be included in that? Is this going to only be commercial type homes? Is it going to be private residences? They're really going to have to be more specific. I can see some individuals having issue with this, deciding on who actually gets that money. $100 billion to expand high-speed broadband. I do think that this is very necessary. Again, they're going to have to be specific on exactly how they're going to do this and who's going to get that money. Upgrade and build public schools. So $100 billion billion more for public schools. They included a bunch of money in the previous economic stimulus plan for public schools, and now they want $100 billion more. Again, be very specific on exactly what they're going to do with that. Water infrastructure, including $45 billion to eliminate all lead pipes, $56 billion to modernize America's drinking system, wastewater and stormwater systems, $111 billion. Public housing projects, $40 billion. VA hospitals and clinics, $18 billion. Plug orphan oil and gas wells. Clean up abandoned mines, $16 billion. Improve the electric grid, $100 billion. Clean energy, sustainable accelerator, $27 billion. Upgrade childcare facilities, $25 billion. Community college infrastructure, $12 billion. Federal buildings modernization, $10 billion. And new workers in public lands and waters, $10 billion. All of that totaled to about $650 billion and mainly focused at improving and upgrading buildings. There was some broadband included in that, also the electrical grid. Here's the problem I see with that portion of it. It's not very specific. And although many of the titled areas seemed good, like most reasonable people say, of course we should do that and do that and do that. When you get down to the specifics, exactly how is that money going to be spent? How is the oversight going to be handled? What states are going to get it? What organizations in what states are going to get it? How is that money going to be delivered off? What's included in all of that? I mean, because if you're not very specific, that money could go to many, many different places. And you're going to have a lot of lawmakers who are going to want to pin down exactly where that $650 billion is going to go. Because I will tell you, trusting the government is something that you don't want to do, no matter what side of the aisle you fall on. You want them to be very specific about what they're going to do, because when they're not, they play games and they mess with people. You've seen that in the stimulus money. In fact, many of you haven't even seen your third stimulus money yet, because that's what the government does. They extend things off if there's no deadline. So I think a lot of lawmakers are going to want to see a lot more specifics on the second part of this American Jobs Plan. Let's get to the third part of it. USA Today is slating the third part as caregivers for elderly people and disability. So basically, there's only one box here, $400 billion caregivers for elderly and disabled. And so again, quality of life, affordable home communities, Medicaid program. Now, although this doesn't seem controversial, you're going to have a lot of people who are going to say that this has nothing to do with infrastructure. So it's being included in a jobs plan. And although it might be acceptable and something that should be included, especially for those who are elderly in our society, improving that quality of life, putting it in a jobs plan might get some pushback. And then going down here to the fourth part, USA Today has it as research, development, and manufacturing. About $300 billion in the plan is going to be invested in manufacturing, including support for domestic production of technologies and critical goods. Around $50 billion will go towards semiconductor manufacturing and research. And you can see the breakdown here. $52 billion domestic manufacturing, rural manufacturing, $48 billion for the American workforce development, infrastructure, and worker protection, $40 billion upgrade research, infrastructure, and laboratory, $35 billion technology addressing the climate crisis, $50 billion new office to monitor domestic industrial capacity, $46 billion support clean energy, $31 billion programs for R&D. $30 billion preventing future pandemics, $40 billion dislocated workers program, $50 billion National Science Foundation, new technology. I know I'm going through a lot of this really quick, but I can tell you that last portion there is going to have a lot of problems, because a lot of that isn't really infrastructure, and to stretch it to being included in infrastructure isn't really going to work with a lot of lawmakers. A lot of it was clean energy stuff, and also without specifics, that money could be spent in a number of different places. So you say, oh, $50 billion for clean energy. Well, what exactly does that mean? Who's going to get that money? What businesses and corporations are going to be able to get their hands in the pockets of the government in order to access that money? And without the specifics, if you're not talking about building bridges, upgrading schools and hospitals, roads, the electric grid, maybe broadband, and just some basic stuff, some of these items that are reaching out a little bit more outside of infrastructure are going to have a lot of problems, and I think you're going to see a lot of pushback. So exactly how is Biden going to pay for this? Of course, he doesn't want to add any more debt, so what he's going to do is increase taxes. And so far, the one tax we know they're increasing is the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. There is a second economic plan that Biden's going to be revealing in the next 2 weeks to add on to this one, and there may be more in taxes included in that plan. These tax cuts were made by President Donald Trump, but now they're going to go back to 28%. The White House has already begun saying that they've been reaching out to Republicans to support this. I don't think you'll find a Republican today in the House or Senate who does not think we have to improve infrastructure, said Biden. I have good faith negotiation with any Republican who wants to get this done, but we have to get this done. Now, of course, you're not going to find Republicans who are going to disagree with improving infrastructure, but you are going to find Republicans who are going to disagree with things that aren't infrastructure, which we did definitely see in that bill. And without specifics, that money could basically be spent anywhere. And so you're going to find Republicans who are going to have problems with that. Then it's going to go to the courthouse of public opinion. And you could catch the difference here in this response from Republican Rob Portman from Ohio. He says, I support improving America's aging roads, bridges, ports, and other infrastructure, and we can do so in a bipartisan way. But he said Biden's plan is far too expensive and does not focus on infrastructure as the White House is framing it. At its core, the president's plan calls for $620 billion of investment in transportation infrastructure. However, the total soars to $3 trillion, and what we've seen here is $2.2 trillion. In its inclusion of broadband policies, priorities that are a far cry away from what we've ever defined as infrastructure. And I would say many of the things that I did see in there, it's tough to include it in an infrastructure bill, although many of it may be good. Like, for example, $400 billion to include for senior improvement. Again, really good thing. I think it's a great thing. Is it infrastructure, though? A lot of the clean energy stuff, is it infrastructure? Mitch McConnell said it contains sweeping far-left priorities like attacking blue-collar Americans' rights to work protections, a huge favorite of big labor bosses every time that far left dogma clashes. I just wish he'd be a little bit more specific with, I mean, this is very opinionated. Mitch McConnell, like, just be specific. Like, oh, it has this much money for this, we want to hear people's opinions, but even somebody who agrees with Mitch McConnell is going to listen to that and go, okay, he's just slanting it his way. He said this plan is not about rebuilding America's backbone. Less than 6% of the massive proposal goes to roads and bridges. Essentially, what is this coming down to? We have one part of Biden's new American jobs plan total at $2.2 trillion. The corporate tax rate is going to increase 21 to 28% to pay for it. Much of it goes to infrastructure to improve our ports and our airports, our roadways, our bridges, public schools, electrical grid, much of the commercial housing when it comes to the piping and HVAC systems, perhaps even windows and other units in public housing. A lot of the money is going to broadband and electrical vehicle stuff. But then there is also a lot of the money, at least half from what I can see, just going through it quickly there with you, that is going to other things that are outside infrastructure, that are going to be very hard to convince people to put into an infrastructure bill. And this is where you're going to get the back and forth battling, and you're going to see it on the news media sites. Depending on which one you listen to, they're going to say, oh, how dare these people do this? And the other side is going to say, well, look at what they're doing here. At least you have the basic breakdown. You can come up with the opinion yourself. Now moving on to an important news release from the IRS, especially for those of you that already filed your taxes. You know, in the last economic stimulus bill that they included a provision that if you received unemployment and you earned under $75,000 as a single filer or $150,000 as a joint filer, that money, the unemployment boost money that you received, would be tax-free. Up to $10,200 for a single filer and $20,400 for joint filers. And unfortunately, many people filed their taxes and they paid taxes on that unemployment. And so what the IRS is saying is do not file amended taxes. Do not do that. Starting in May, they're going to be handing out refunds for anybody that paid taxes on that because they filed their taxes early. They're going to start with giving the money back to those who are single filers in May, and then they're going to move on to giving the money back to joint filers as well. And now let's finish up with the disbursement of the stimulus money. Many of you being Social Security, SSI, SSDI, Veterans, Survivor, RRB. We know the big news from the IRS just released a couple of days ago is that money is now going to be going out. So what we can tell you is that the information from Social Security Administration given to the IRS and the Treasury has been processed. So if you are receiving money from SSI, SSDI, any kind of Social Security money, they now have your information. They have you in the system. It's all filed away, and they are going to be dispersing that money to you. So according to the IRS's future projections, that money is slated to be given out in a huge batch. It could be upwards of 25 to 30 million people on Wednesday, April 7th. So what you should be looking for, probably many of you, even tomorrow or Saturday, so April 2nd and April 3rd, you may start seeing in your bank accounts, if you get the direct deposit, that money is being forwarded to you by your bank, because the bank is going to know if the IRS is going to give them a big batch deposit on Wednesday, April 7th. If you do not see money in your bank account tomorrow or Saturday, do not worry about it. It doesn't mean you're not going to get it. It just means you're probably going to have to wait till the Wednesday, which is what my bank did. My bank did not forward me the money. I had to wait until the Wednesday when I got it. And so that may be the case for many of you. You can check the IRS Get My Payment tool. The updated information may be in there. Now, if there's any delay by the IRS or the Treasury here, they may delay it a week, but that's not what they're saying right now. They're saying April 7th is the big day, so we'll keep you updated on that. Veterans, by the way, were not included in this, which is very unfortunate, but the IRS did say that veterans should be receiving their money sometime in mid-April. So it looks like they're going to have that batch coming out for Wednesday, April 14th. And so many veterans might be able to see that in their bank account perhaps the weekend before, or they'll have to wait for the batch there as well. Those of you who are receiving checks or the cards, be on the lookout for your mail. They're going to be in regular white envelopes. Remember, don't throw anything out. You want to check and look into everything. Make sure if there's a check coming to you or a card coming to you that you do receive that. Most people are going to be getting direct deposits though. Okay, so don't expect the check or the card. Expect the direct deposit. If the direct deposit doesn't make it to you in the next few weeks, then the check or the card should be heading on its way. But they're going to be sending those out along with the direct deposits as well. Of course, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I'll try to address them in future videos, or many of the subscribers have a lot of good information here. A lot of people are answering each other's questions below and doing a really good job of it. So I appreciate that. Thank you all for coming along with me. As always, I will catch you next time.